Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Edlund from the Clark Hewlings Fund for Visual Artists, and I'm really excited today to have a very special guest with me. And he is the founding director of the National Consortium for Creative Placemaking. That's Leonardo Vasquez. Welcome, Leo. It's really good to speak with you today. How are you doing?
Thanks, Carolyn. I'm great, and thank you for inviting me to be on your show. I appreciate it. How are you?
I'm good. And I have some questions for you because you are in a really interesting niche in the arts, something that people need to know more about, and that is creative placemaking. So before we move further, I want to ask you straight up, what is creative placemaking and why should artists care about it?
Okay, sure. Thank you. So, creative placemaking, in short, is about enhancing quality of life in communities through arts, local arts, and culture. Um, Now, that's more than just having arts in communities, although that's a big part of it. Um, it's about how you engage people with arts and with artists specifically. How do you use art making to enhance people's, or rather to surface people's creativity, sense of creativity. Everybody is creative. We're not all professional artists, of course, but everybody who's ever solved a problem, anybody who's ever done something new in some way, whatever that new thing is is creative. So a lot of people get intimidated by the idea that being creative. In fact, they say, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist. Everybody's got that spark, and the work of creative placemaking is in part about surfacing, bringing that up so that we can enhance our community, so we can make our communities more livable, more equitable, more prosperous, more just. Artists play such an important role. You can't have arts without the artists. Uh, and it's not just artists as producers of art. It's artists as artists can help people think in new ways. What makes an artist, whether they're a painter, a musician, or performer, it's somebody who can create something that wasn't there before. And when and that's what our communities are. I mean, when we're planning for communities, our future doesn't exist yet. We can't control the future, but we can help the future become more of what we want it to be. And so we can move towards that. So artists play an important role in helping people see that, helping people express their creativity. There are what are known as social practice artists, artists who specialize in working with communities. And what they do is they may help people design and actually produce murals or other kinds of arts activities.
I remember being at Valley Arts, and this is years ago in New Jersey, and I know you're from New Jersey, and this was an example of a community where placemaking was in progress. Now, it was a big project, and this is kind of what I've always thought of with creative placemaking. You had an old abandoned factory. It was made into artists' studios and living quarters. The old fire station was made into a gallery. The
Mhm.
Another building was made into a theater, so that there was almost a whole renaissance taking place in an area that had really experienced urban blight. Now, I
Mhm.
guess that would be a pretty ambitious example of creative placemaking. But what I'm hearing from you is saying that you don't need to be a sculptor who's putting something in the middle of a plaza. You can actually be teaching art, or you can be sharing art, or you can be interacting with a community as an artist, and then you are doing the work of placemaking by virtue of that kind of activity. Would that be
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, people sometimes don't like the term placemaking because they think it's almost like being a real estate developer and you're going in and you're changing things, or the places are made, no single person, no single organization, or even a small group of people makes a place by themselves. Places are made and remade and sustained by the countless actions of people in their environment and how they relate to one another, how they relate to the environment. So everything you do, if you're talking about working with people, let's say there's an issue, they're concerned about police, violence, let's say violence in the communities, and wherever it's coming from, and you work with those the people in the community on developing a mural, maybe developing some kind of visual arts project. Maybe it's images that are
Mhm.
around the community. Um, you're empowering people. You're, by putting it as public art, by putting it on the public right away, you're saying this is an important thing to think about. People are
Mhm.
saying that, um, and that can help shape people's sense of confidence. Uh, it can make them feel that they are more valued, that their lives are mattering more, because now they're seeing representations of
Mhm.
themselves in the community, it to a greater extent. Because the thing about art is, when you put something in a frame, or you elevate it and you call it art, there's something that people go, oh, okay, this is something I should pay attention to. I may not, I may love it, I may like it, I may not like it at all, but at least I know I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to pay attention to. So all these things are creative placemaking, because they are designed ultimately to help shape what is happening in the community. And art there, in this case, is, we're not doing art for art's sake. Now that in itself is important. Art, the role, the art should not always be, or subservient to other people's needs. I mean, art exists, the artist exists to produce art, to create art. The artist should not be uh, told what to create. But um, but in this case, what we do with creative placemaking is that art becomes a powerful vehicle for this kind of, for some kind of intended impact.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the art that is created in the placemaking projects actually reflects the interests, the concerns, and the lives of the people who live in that community. So we could differentiate placemaking from, say, gentrification.
Yeah. Yeah. So art is the best public art. And when I say public art, I mean any art that exists in the public, outdoors, or in some kind of public space, as opposed to something that exists in a gallery or is meant to be inside somebody's home. Um, the best art, and this could be visual art, performance art. What do people want to see? Well, they want to see themselves. They want to see their aspirations. They want to see they want the art, something that is elevated, to be an expression of themselves. Um, and the best public art, in terms of having that impact. Now, I'm not talking about the quality of the artwork itself. I don't, you know, uh, uh, I don't have anything to say about the quality of art. I know what I like. Some I know what I don't like. I'm not going to say that it's good art or bad art. It's, I'm not in a position to, I'm not an art critic. But what I could say is, in terms of the art that can achieve the greatest, the most lasting, the deepest impact, is public art that is designed and created as a collaboration between artists and members of the community.
So when you say artists and members of the community, what I know about, actually from having attended one of your conferences, is that the people who are in the industry who are involved with creative placemaking, quite often you'll see art councils, art organizations, or even municipalities. So perhaps the city is looking to commission a mural, or they're looking for a piece of sculpture, or maybe they're looking for even a placemaker. So I'm looking at these entities and these organizations as kind of the instigators and the decision makers that have a lot to do with funding and putting placemaking, into the community. But what can an artist, an individual artist themselves, do to either become involved, find opportunities, or start something in their own community?
Sure. Um, so the the artist can be involved in a number of different ways, um, and some of them, and quite frankly, some, if not a lot of them, are, you know, aren't about creating art itself. It may be about getting involved on boards, on committees. Um, it uh, may be about um, going and talking to community, to members of the community. There are some artists who are in this realm called tactical urbanism, where they will actually do something called guerrilla art, where they will actually create something um, that changes the function of a place. So if we think about a parklet, um, maybe the first time somebody took a parking space and put some grass there, or put a stage there, that's tactical urbanism. Sometimes that, a lot nowadays, there are a lot of towns that like to see that, but in the early years, in the 70s, when this was really radical stuff, there would be people who basically come in the middle of the night and take over a park space, or today, yarn bombing. Where somebody knits something, and then people wake up in the morning, they see, the light pole has, suddenly he's got a sweater on it.
Yeah, that
Uh,
is so funny. I've seen that. And I love the fact that that gets a lot of attention. You're absolutely right. When a piece of art goes up, people look at it. It grabs attention. You start seeing pictures of yarn bombing all over the city, and it's being posted on social media. It becomes part of a conversation. And maybe it's more than just the piece of art itself, but maybe it's, what is this community about? How are we enhancing the
mm,
conversation or even the quality of life? And are the people in this community responding to, and is this a good fit for what the needs are and how we can move our cities a little bit farther towards being really livable and being places that people want to live?
yeah, exactly. I agree with you completely. And I bet, to your last question, it's actually easier to talk about what an artist shouldn't do rather than what they can do. In terms of what they can do, they can be involved. Uh, they can be involved in the planning. They can be involved in the committees that help decide where the art should be and what type of art. They can be involved certainly as producers of art. They can be involved as engaging with members of the community. They can be involved in uh, uh, engaging with government agencies,
Mm-hmm.
or organizational leaders that are commissioning the work. In fact, there are a number of cities now, including Boston, Massachusetts, and Austin, Texas, where artists are now embedded in public agencies. Um, but in terms of, when I say what shouldn't an artist do, an artist who wants to do this work shouldn't just go in and say, that wall over there, this is what should be on it. You know, it's fine when you're working at home. Nobody, when you're working in your studio or at home, whatever, nobody should be telling you what to draw, what to paint, what to sketch, etc. But when you're working with a community, the best art from and a social impact point of view is art that is collaborative, that is created collaboratively between the artist and members of the community. Now, it may not be the best work of art from a from an art critic's point of view, but again, it's, you know, for me, um, what's important is the social impact. You know, I can't speak, you know, if it might be it might be a great work of art, but if it's not, if people don't feel inspired by it, empowered by it, if it's not having an impact on the place itself, if it just exists on its own, then it might be a great work of art. It might be a great example of public art, but it's not a great example of creative placemaking.
Right. I hear what you're saying. So it really needs the community uh, input and interaction. So let
Yeah,
me ask you
oh,
this.
and if I could just jump in and say, what this means for the artist too is they have to think about this. If you're the kind of artist who works, who's most comfortable working by yourself, and you don't like people telling you, saying, you know, hey, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, then, you know, you could certainly be involved in a lot of aspects of creative placemaking, but maybe you shouldn't be doing the actual artwork itself, because, you know, when you collaborate, you are literally working together. People people tend to nurture what they create, and so they're going to expect that maybe it's not about everything they get, but they're going to expect to see them, to have their voice
Hmm.
in the design, in the final product, etc. So, um, as an artist, if you're going to go into this work, you should know what you feel comfortable uh, doing. Um,
So
I,
artists can have different roles, whether they're leaders, whether they're planners, whether they're producers, whether they're interacting. But
yeah,
my question for you would be now, and of course, we're in a pandemic, and I'm hearing a lot of talk about being in the community, and we can't really go out and get into big social gatherings and so forth right now. So, it is this something that artists can become involved in right now during the pandemic? What can we do now to become involved in placemaking while we're in our homes or studios?
sure. So let's say, for example, you know, let's say an example might be yarn bombing. You and, you know, you are you you're an artist whose medium is fiber arts, you know, and you have other friends who are fiber. So you do a yarn bombing, um, and not just that you have the product out, not the product, and you have the artwork out there, but maybe you also put out notices to encourage people to talk about the artwork. You know, go to this Zoom meeting, go to this Facebook group, so something like that.
Mhm.
Talk about, and then, you know, you ask them, all right, what did you think of that? And if you liked it, tell us why you liked it. If you didn't like it, tell us. And start the conversation with people about, okay, well, what is it about? Especially those people who don't quite understand, don't quite like it. To say, okay, well, what is it? Why does it upset you? Why does it? What does it say about uh, what about the community? You know, you use the artwork, the artwork itself, as a catalyst for a deeper conversation or another conversation about that sense of place. Another thing that can be done um, is, um, you know, that I've seen actually in Montclair, in South Orange, is having artwork that exists, temporary artwork that exists uh, outside, you know, an outdoor gallery,
Mhm.
and then encouraging the conversation. As you can see, I'm going back to the idea that it's not just the artwork; it's also the conversation. It's what
I
follows.
hear
It's what
you.
part of.
Yeah. I think what strikes me most about creative placemaking is that it is the art is the catalyst, and it is the conversation and the change that it's fomenting, and the way that people feel about their lives and their surroundings being near the art where the difference is really taking place.
Yeah.
So that it's bigger than, and the art is just jump starting the changes, that the positive changes, and enhancing the life uh, experience in those communities.
Well, the art can be a catalyst. It can also be a reflection.
Okay.
Um, so you may have
It's a
you
recognition
know,
of concerns or of people's lives.
right. So you may have a community where there are some pretty deep racial tensions,
Mhm.
and there's conversations about it. And then there's public art, that is about addressing those tensions, about the reckoning, about reconciliation, about addressing. And so in that case, it's a reflection. But you know, it's an ongoing conversation. It's not like, even though the exhibit might be there and it might exist for a certain amount of time, the conversations it strikes, the ripple effect, is something that keeps going. I do want to, if I can, circle back to something you asked about before, and I realized I didn't answer, and I want to make sure that people do understand my view on this particular topic, so that they don't think I ignored the question. You said about creative placemaking and gentrification. Um, Gentrification is one of those topics that it's one of those things that it, it's it's very hard to put an actual boundary to, parameters, because where where does revitalization stop? Where does gentrification begin? Some gentrification, gentrification always involves some kind of change in property values, which usually leads to some changes in population.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes there's places just change organically. I mean, places are not museums pieces. Places, change because people age, people move, different people die, other people move in, people are born, etc. Um, so in terms of creative placemaking, there's another word that some people use called placekeeping, which is usually about how protecting the cultural elements of a place. So for example, if you have a community where drum circles on Sundays or Saturday, on weekends, have been
Mhm.
part of that community, and now somebody's coming in and complaining about moves in and complains about the drum circles and wants to get rid of them. Placekeeping is about making sure, hey, we're protecting that. um, Creative place making, the way we practice it, uh, placekeeping is an element of it. That we know that it's not about change. Again, it's not about changing everything. It's about being very strategic, being very intentional of what needs to be protected, what needs to be cherished, what needs to be preserved, and what needs to be changed. And then uh, how do we make those changes that we want happen while minimizing the negative effects on the things that we want to keep or
Yeah.
protect.
I love that. I think that's such a great description. And I've attended some of the courses that you've given online at NCCP, and there are entire courses and areas of study. This is there are schools that offer creative placemaking programs, and I know
Hmm.
that you do this at your organization, and you really foster that conversation and the understanding and exposing artists and others to the benefits of creative placemaking. So I really want to recognize you for doing that. It's so interesting to learn about, and I want to encourage artists to go to your website so they can learn more. And you are at cpcommunities.org.
Hmm.
And what are a couple of the things that can take place or they can participate in over at your organization? What do you have going
Yeah.
on for the public and for artists?
Great, thanks. And before I mention that, I just want to say um, I am blessed to have such a great team of people working with me, and so many partners. And we we learn so much from so many people. But in terms of what people can take away from connections with us, well, we have a variety of programs depending on whether you just have an hour, or you just want to learn about one thing, or you want to get really, really deep in, and really master the craft of creative placemaking. So our short form programming, we have two types. One is our community coffee talks, which my colleague Andrea Orlando produces, and these are really interesting conversations with people who are doing some exciting things, most of them artists. She records the coffee talks and they become podcasts. And so we have actually in our Creative Place podcasts, we have I think around 30 episodes now, many of them featuring artists of different media, different varieties. I also do webinars, which are more instructional, where I or a guest instructor will give you insights on a particular topic. So we have, we'll be discussing in our upcoming series, we'll be discussing things such as culturally competent placemaking and financing creative placemaking and resilient communities and the history of creative placemaking. Now, I won't give it away, but if you're a fan of the arts and crafts movement, you'll really enjoy this history of creative placemaking. And then we have our summits, which are over several days. And these help you, build your connections in the world of creative placemaking, as well as learn from people who are doing really interesting work. And then finally, we have our certificate in creative placemaking, which is a 10-month program that really is designed to give you a real deep knowledge of this field and give you the time and the guidance to really master this craft. So in the certificate, we explore systems change and community development and economic development and alliance building and sustainable cultural tourism and site planning and collaborative leadership. And then we're I would say we're pretty creative ourselves, and we get bored easily. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were some new programs that I haven't even mentioned yet.
Well, this is really exciting. As I said, I attended one of your conferences. I have been on board to learn from you. I attended Placemaking 101, which I completed, and I've heard about this ongoing program. So I really want to encourage the artists who are watching this video to learn more about it, find out if it's something you want to become involved in. I think it's tremendously impactful. If you are interested in social change, if you're interested in the difference that your art can make and how you as an artist can take a place in the world and be a leader, this is a really wonderful endeavor to get involved in. So again, I want to encourage you to stop by the National Consortium of Creative Placemaking, and that is at cpcommunities.org. Check it out, get on their mailing list. And I want to thank you for being with me today, Leo. Before we go, I have one more announcement, and that is about an event that the Clark Hewlings Fund has coming up. So I'd like to invite everyone attending today to register for our upcoming virtual art business conference, and that's going to be taking place from October 19th through 30th, 2020. This is a multi-session interactive conference. It's going to be live streamed, so you can attend from your home or your studio. You don't have to travel. It's all about the new normal, and it's going to be about how you can be a thriving artist even during this time of pandemic. So it's also going to be recorded, so you won't miss any sessions, and you can review it anytime you like. To learn more about that conference, I invite you to visit us at clarkhewlingsfund.org/conference. And I hope that you'll join us there. So, Leo, thank you again so much for participating with me. We're going to spread this video far and wide, start the conversation, and I hope that you will join in and get more people involved with learning about and participating in creative placemaking.
And thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation. And thank you and your colleagues for all the great work you're doing for visual artists and really artists of all kinds.
I appreciate that. It's been great talking with you today.
You too, Caroline.